So bring yourselves to lying onto your backs and have a couple of cushions to support underneath your thighs. So we're going to come into a reclining butterfly to start here. So feet together, just resting down onto your back. You may or may not want to have a blanket underneath your back, up to you. Just get yourselves into a comfortable position here. And maybe have right hand resting onto the belly, left hand lightly resting over the heart. Just finding that connection with the breath here. Feeling the right hand rising up as the abdomen expands out. And the left hand sinking down as the chest expels the stale air out. Perhaps visualizing the breath moving in a circular motion, starting from the base of the belly up to the top of the chest, and then flowing down the spine as you exhale, making that visualization of a circular motion. About another minute in the pose here. Perhaps noticing how the breath has maybe slowed down now that you've been focusing on it for a couple of minutes. No forcing of the breath, just allowing it to flow naturally. Perhaps noticing the heartbeat has slowed down a little as well. Coming towards the end of the pose now. Just drawing the knees in together, maybe bend them in towards you, give yourself a little hug, a little bit of a rock side to side, and then just rolling either onto one side or just rolling straight up into sitting. Coming into the straight-legged forward fold. So just letting the hands rest alongside the legs, just tilting the torso forwards, letting the head rest down. If it's uncomfortable with the feet together, you might prefer to take the feet slightly apart, so just finding what's going to work for you. And either have the hands resting alongside or even resting elbows onto the legs. Could even perhaps bring the hands up under the chin to rest the head into the palms of the hands, supporting the neck here. If that doesn't work, just letting perhaps a little movement come into the neck area to release out any tension there. And then finding that stillness within the pose. And we're about halfway through here. One more minute remaining. Maybe for the final minute, perhaps is there a little bit more space that you can extend down? Taking care of that lower back area. That's feeling a little bit more release down the back of the legs. Half a minute more to go. To the end of the pose. Hands in. And then coming into a back bend, lying onto your tummy, so coming into the Sphinx pose. A bit of time to transition from a forward bend to a back bend. Bringing the elbows maybe under the shoulders, or you might want to start with the elbows out a little bit wider if it feels a bit too intense to begin with. Choosing your arm position here, so you've got a nice curve through the spine, feeling the pelvis pressing down into the floor, letting the legs and the buttocks just relax out behind you. And you can maybe bring the hands up to rest the chin into the hands to help support the neck, if that works for you. If you've got the elbows out wider, perhaps bringing them in a little bit more under the shoulders now. Checking in with the spine here, how does that feel? And if you wanted to take it deeper still, then walking the hands in a little bit closer so you can lift the elbows off the floor and try to keep the shoulders relaxed here. Finding whatever's your optimum back bend. There's another half a minute remaining here. So if you're up on your hands, you might see if you want to come back down to the elbows perhaps. Coming towards the end of the pose now. letting the elbows release out to the side, resting the head down, turning the head to one side, cheek onto the mat. And we're going to come straight to the Spirit of Ecstasy pose today. So have your little cushion at the ready. And then you're going to stretch your right arm out to the side. And then rolling over onto the right hip. And then just finding a stable position with the legs, maybe bending the top knee to rest the foot behind you. And then the other hand either hovering over the top or perhaps bending the elbow to rest the arm down behind you. And finding here, opening up through the front of the body, squeezing through the shoulder blades, just taking that right arm to whatever level gives you not exactly comfortable feeling, because it's not the most comfortable of the yin postures, but something that's not too agonizing. And maybe you could even bring the hands together to clasp the hands behind you to enhance that squeeze through the shoulder blades. And make sure the head's resting onto a cushion so you've got a nice neutral position for your neck. And then just letting the body release here. Halfway through the pose. And coming towards the end of the pose here. Starting to just gently roll over onto your tummy again. And then bringing yourselves slowly up onto all fours. And then we're just going to have about a minute here to release out through the shoulders into a prayer pose. So with the knees underneath the hips, stretching out through the arms and the shoulders, and then resting the head either to the mat or bringing the cushion in a little to rest the forehead down, so supporting the head. Trying to keep the elbows off the floor here so you get a nice stretch out through the shoulders. About another half a minute to go here. Into the end of the pose, so releasing down to your tummies again. And then we're going to stretch out with the left arm to the side and then rolling onto the left hip, taking the foot behind you to stabilise the lower body, and then the right arm over the top. And just finding that nice squeezing through the shoulder blades. And maybe the hands might come together, or just letting the elbow bend to rest the hand behind the back. Making sure the neck's nice and neutral here. The lower body relaxed. Working on that compression through the upper back, opening out through the front of the chest and the shoulders. About 1 more minute remaining here. And slowly starting to release back onto your tummy. Taking care of those shoulders. And then slowly bringing yourself up to all fours to release once again into the prayer pose, extending out with the arms, releasing down with the head, coming into this nice soft inversion. Stretching out through the shoulders where we've been compressing. Giving the body, internal organs, the chance just to float in the opposite direction from normal. To the end of a minute here, so just slowly starting to walk the hands back in towards you. And then we're going to rest down into a child pose. So you can either have the knees together here and hands alongside the feet, or if that doesn't work for you, open the knees out a little bit wider, bringing the hands in front, maybe the forehead resting onto the forearms. Whichever version of a child pose feels suitable. If you need it a little, maybe cushion under the thighs to soften through the knees. If it's a bit too intense, a compression on your knee joint here. And once you've got your most appropriate pose, finding that stillness. We're halfway through the pose here. About another 20 seconds remaining. Coming to the end of the pose as you bring yourself up onto all fours. And then we're going to come up into a downward dog, so lifting up through the knees, feet about hip distance apart, and then just walk it out left and right a few times. And then coming onto the toes, bending through both the knees, pushing away from the hands. Letting the head rest between the elbows. Taking a few nice deep breaths here. And then releasing down to the knees. And then coming to dragon, taking the right foot to the outside of the hand. Perhaps bringing something to rest the left knee onto, so it's not directly on a hard surface. Taking the knee back as far as it will comfortably go, so you get that nice stretch down the front of the thigh, the hip flexor. Keeping the neck into a neutral position, so just maybe looking down towards your mat. And then we're bringing it into a twist, so taking the right hand to the knee, and then looking over the shoulder. And then perhaps a little pressure on the inside of the knee to open out through the groin. Maybe just bringing the weight onto the outer edge of that right foot. If that feels nice for your groin area, to give that nice stretch there. If that's too much, then just keep the foot flat on the floor and the hand on top of the knee. Just giving you options if you want to take it a little bit deeper. And then releasing it back to the center, putting the hands either under the shoulders again, or perhaps taking the elbows down to the mat, or perhaps onto a block if you have a block handy, or a cushion, or folded up blanket perhaps might work. And just taking whichever of those options feels appropriate for your body. Slowly lifting up out of the pose. And then we're just going to come into a half split for maybe a minute. So taking the right foot, inching the right foot forwards, and turning the toes up towards the ceiling so you get a nice stretch all the way through the hamstring of the right leg. A couple more breaths here. And then walking that foot back in, and then bringing the knees under the hips. And then might like to take it up into a downward dog again, so pressing into the toes, lifting up from the knees. Either walking out left heel and right heel, or coming straight into your yin version of a downward dog with the knees bent. Couple more breaths if that's okay, or resting down to your knees if you're finding it a bit too much. And then if you're still in dog, coming onto the knees, and then preparing to come to the dragon pose on the other side. Stepping the left foot forwards, right knee back, finding now the stretch through the right hip flexor. Weight pressing down through the palms of the hands, strengthening through the arm structure of the elbow joint and the wrists. To the end of the first minute here, and taking the left hand into that twist position, again perhaps just pressing on the inside of the knee to open out through the groin, perhaps lifting the big toe off the mat so you've got the weight onto the outer edge of the foot. end of the second minute, so bringing it back to the center again. And then either just staying with the hands under the shoulders or perhaps taking it a little bit deeper, resting the elbows down to the floor and onto a block or a folded blanket. A nice deep release through the hips. And towards the end of the pose now. Just bringing the hands back onto the shoulders and then taking that left foot slightly forwards and then turning the toes up towards the ceiling as you come into a half splits position. You can have the hand on the inside of the leg or perhaps adjusting it to the outside if that makes you a bit more stable. Taking a few more breaths here. And then just bringing that leg, so the knees back under the hips. And then we're going to come back up into our Yin downward dog again. Another minute or so. And then if you're not already there, releasing down to your knees. And I'm going to move into a pigeon pose. So taking your right knee up behind the right wrist. And then just walk the foot out towards the opposite side of the mat. And then sliding the left leg back. So right knee behind the right wrist, and then the shin is sort of almost parallel, well, ideally parallel to the front of the mat, but mine's never going to go there. So it's on a slight angle towards the front edge of the mat. Trying to keep the hips square to the short edge of the mat. And then you can either stay in the upright pigeon or walking the hands out in front of you, coming to rest down onto the elbows, maybe bringing the head down towards the mat or resting it onto the forearms. About halfway through the pose here. If you find it's a bit too intense in the sleeping pigeon, you're welcome to walk the hands back in, bring it back a little bit more upright. Wherever you are, just letting the body release, gravity opening out through that connective tissue. Half a minute more to go. Coming to the end of the pose, if you're still in the sleeping pigeon, walking the hands back in, bringing yourselves upright. And then pressing the weight into the hands, bringing the knees back underneath the hips again. And then just maybe take a little bit of a circle around, releasing out through that right pelvis and hip, and then round the other way. And I'm going to take it into a pigeon on the other side. So taking the left knee up behind the wrist, left wrist, and then helping the foot out to the opposite side of the mat. Starting in an upright pigeon. Keeping the hips square to the front of the mat. And then perhaps taking that option of walking the hands forwards to come into sleeping pigeon. Having the head either resting onto the ground or onto your forearms. Perhaps even onto a cushion. And halfway through the pose here. And about another minute remaining. I'm choosing whether to stay in the sleeping pigeon or walking the hands in. You prefer the more upright version. As we come towards the end of the pose, so if you're reclining, walking the hands in line with the knee, and then slowly taking the knee back underneath the hips, and then that's just a little bit of movement here, circling around, doing whatever your body feels it needs to do right now. Could be cat and cow, could be circles. And then coming to sitting on your heels, maybe bringing a pillow underneath the thighs to make that a bit softer on your knees. And then from here, we'll take a little twist, right hand to the outside of the left knee, and then the left hand dropping down onto your toes as you turn to look over the shoulder. And then turning back to the center, settling the spine here. And then taking it to the other side, so left hand to the outside of the right knee. Other hand dropping to the toes, looking over the shoulder. And then releasing back to the center. Okay, and then we're going to just let the legs stretch out in front. Maybe a little shake out. Flexing, pointing the toes, because we've been trapping the blood in the veins when we're sitting on our heels, so just get that blood flowing again. And then let's come into an extended, wide-legged forward fold. So open the legs out nice and wide, and then you can choose either to keep the hands supporting underneath the shoulders, or bringing the hands onto the tops of the legs, or taking it into a forward fold by releasing the hands either down towards the ankles or out in front of you. A nice stretch through the inner groin area, inside of the knees. Wherever you are, trying to keep a little bit of softness through the elbows, softness through the neck. Which might mean gentle movement of the head. And about halfway through the pose now. Half a minute more to go. Moving the hands back in. Bringing the legs in together. Then we're going to come into a supported fish. So taking a pillow or a longish cushion behind your back. And then just coming down first onto your elbows. Taking a moment to transition into the back bend here. And then releasing all the way down onto your back. So a slight arch through the lower back. Maybe taking the arms overhead if you want to get more of a extension through the, or compression through the spine. So maybe if the cushion isn't long enough to support the neck, you might want to bring another one under the neck. Trying to open up through the front of the throat here. Keeping the legs soft. Opening through the chest and the front of the body. Opening up the throat chakra, where the thyroid gland is. About another minute remaining here. Just bringing your arms back alongside you and then pressing into the elbows, lifting the head up, and lifting yourselves all the way back up to sitting, and then just taking the cushion out of the way. So just stay upright for a minute while I demonstrate the next couple of poses. So I'm going to give you a choice here. You can either come to a happy baby, so lying onto your back with the knees bent and holding on either to the outside of the legs or the feet, or you can come into a plow pose, so a yin version of plow. So take care of the back here, where you bring the hands up to support the back and then just drop the knees either side of the ears. Bring yourself into an inversion. So choose either one of those two. If you've got issues with your back, I would say just stay in the happy baby. So lying onto the back, bending the knees either side, so the thighs are either side of the abdomen, holding onto the outer edge of the feet or the hands around the back of the thighs perhaps. Or if you want to come into the plow, then the knees come together, lifting up the bottom and then dropping the knees down either side of the ears, or resting the knees onto the forehead can also feel quite nice. Or you could choose to do a little bit of both, perhaps coming into plow for a minute and then when that's enough, coming down into a happy baby. halfway through the pose here. And then about half a minute to go now. Just releasing the feet back down to the floor. And then taking a pillow to place between your knees, ready for a twist. And then maybe another pillow over on the left hand side of your knees. Just start to release the knees over to the left, keeping the shoulders resting onto the floor. Just finding whatever appropriate arm position keeps the upper body stable. Taking whatever support you need under the knees. Finding that gentle twist through the length of the spine. And we're halfway through the pose on this side. Coming towards the end of the pose. knees back into the center. And then maybe adjusting your cushion ready over to the other side. And then just letting the knees drop over to the right side. Finding your arm position that's going to keep the upper body nice and stable. Letting the body settle into this twist on the other side. About another minute remaining here. Coming to the end of the pose now. Just drawing the knees back into the center, taking the cushion out of the way, and then just bringing yourselves into resting pose, so releasing the legs out, turning the palms to face up. I've just noticed my battery's about to die, so I'm going to nip away and get my charging thing. So just stay with the hands and the legs resting out. If you need another layer, if it's a little bit cooler today, maybe placing a blanket over you. I shall be back in just a moment. Feeling the whole body releasing into the floor. Noticing if there's any areas of tension in the body. Bringing the awareness to that area. Letting the tension release out with your exhalation. And perhaps visualizing your body as a series of blue and red lights. So the tense areas are red, the released areas are blue. So working through the body until the whole body becomes pure blue light. And visualizing your body as a reflection of the blue sky. Visualizing your body becoming part of the blue sky. Merging, becoming one with the rest of the universe. And starting to become aware again of your breath, feeling the cool air flowing in through the nostrils and the warm air flowing out. With each inhalation, feeling fresh energy flowing into your body, filling the heart and the lungs. Feeling energy coming up to the head, energizing the brain. Energy flowing down the arms to the tips of the fingers. Energy flowing down the torso, energizing the vital organs. Energy flowing all the way down the legs to the tips of the toes. Feeling the whole body filled with energizing life force energy, prana. And then making small movements of the fingers and the toes and the wrists and the ankles. And then bringing the feet together, reaching the arms overhead, having a big stretch out here. And then just letting yourself roll over onto your right side, resting the head onto the arm, other hand coming to rest in front of you. And then when you're ready, coming slowly on up into sitting. And then finishing up with a little massage, so rubbing your hands together, resting the hands over the face, massaging the face and the head and the neck and the shoulders, and then down either side of the spine and all the way down the legs to the knees, the ankles and the feet. And then from the one shoulder down to the fingers. And then on the other side. And turning the palms to face up, inhaling the hands together, bringing the goodness of your yoga into your heart center. Namaste.